Have you ever noticed that the harder you try to keep someone in your life, the more distant they seem to become? Why do some people suddenly become interested when you stop giving them your attention? And why do intelligent, self-aware people keep repeating this cycle even after it has hurt them dozens of times before? Most people assume they're chasing another person, but that's not always true. Sometimes they're chasing certainty. They're chasing reassurance. They're chasing relief from the uncomfortable feeling of not knowing where they stand. And that's what makes this pattern so difficult to escape. Because every unanswered message, every mixed signal, every moment of distance creates a question inside the mind, a question that demands an answer. So you reach out again, you explain more, you try harder, not because the other person asked you to, but because uncertainty feels unbearable. What most people never realize is that chasing someone doesn't just affect the relationship, it slowly trains your mind to depend on that person for emotional stability. Their attention becomes relief, their response becomes reassurance, their approval becomes proof that everything is okay. But here's the strange part. The more you seek that relief from someone else, the more power you unknowingly hand over. And once that process begins, you're no longer reacting to the person, you're reacting to something much deeper, something most people spend years misunderstanding. And until you see it, you'll continue believing you're chasing them, when in reality, you're chasing something else entirely. If you're not actually chasing the person, then what are you chasing? To understand that, you have to look at something most people never notice. The strongest attachments in life are not always created by love, friendship, or connection. They're often created by uncertainty. Think about it. The people who occupy the most space in your mind are rarely the ones who make their intentions completely clear. They're the ones who leave questions unanswered, the ones who are warm one day and distant the next, the ones who make you wonder where you stand. And the mind hates unanswered questions. It wants closure. It wants certainty. It wants to know that everything is okay. That's why a single delayed reply can feel more powerful than hours of normal conversation. It's not because the message itself matters that much. It's because uncertainty has been activated. Suddenly, your attention narrows. Your thoughts return to the same person again and again. You replay conversations, you search for clues, you try to decode meanings that may not even exist. And here's where things become dangerous. Most people believe they're trying to get closer to someone, but often they're trying to escape a feeling. The feeling of not being chosen, the feeling of not being enough, the feeling of not knowing. The person becomes the imagined solution to an internal discomfort. And because the discomfort remains unresolved, the pursuit continues. This is why chasing can become exhausting without ever feeling complete. No amount of attention is enough when the real problem isn't external. The mind keeps demanding more proof, more reassurance, more certainty. But certainty is exactly the one thing another person can never permanently provide. And once you understand that, a much bigger question appears. If chasing isn't bringing people closer, and certainty can never truly be secured through another person, then why do some people seem completely free from this cycle while others remain trapped in it for years? But here's where things become confusing in a way most explanations never address. Because even when people understand that uncertainty is what's driving them, they still don't stop. They already know the pattern. They've analyzed it, overthought it, maybe even promised themselves they wouldn't repeat it again, and yet the cycle continues. One message, one reply, one small shift in tone, and everything restarts. That's because the mind doesn't just respond to logic in these moments, it responds to urgency. And urgency is created when uncertainty and emotional investment collide. It feels like something needs to be resolved immediately, even when nothing is actually happening. The strange part is that the brain begins treating emotional unpredictability like importance. The less stable the attention from someone, the more significant it feels. And without realizing it, people start valuing inconsistency more than consistency. Not because it feels good, but because it feels stimulating. And stimulation can easily be mistaken for connection. This is where the loop strengthens, because now the mind isn't just trying to feel secure anymore, it's trying to resolve a pattern that never resolves. A moment of distance creates tension, a moment of attention releases it. And that release feels like relief, not happiness. So the brain starts chasing relief instead of connection. And that difference is subtle, but it changes everything. Because relief is temporary by design. It disappears quickly, which forces the cycle to restart again and again. This is why even self-aware people struggle here. Awareness doesn't break the loop when the loop is being powered by emotional timing rather than reasoning. And the more someone tries to intellectually understand it, the more they can actually remain trapped inside it, which leads to a strange contradiction. People can fully recognize the pattern, even describe it clearly, and still find themselves repeating it, as if knowing the truth and escaping it are two completely different systems in the mind. And this is where a deeper question starts to emerge. If understanding isn't enough to stop the cycle, then what part of the mind is actually driving it? But what most people never realize is that once this pattern spreads, it doesn't just change how you relate to others, it starts changing how you interpret reality itself. Because when emotional stability becomes dependent on external reactions, your mind doesn't just observe situations anymore, it starts translating them. A delayed reply is no longer just timing. It becomes meaning. A short message is no longer just tone, it becomes distance. A busy day from someone else stops being neutral and starts being personal. And slowly, without noticing it, your mind begins filling in gaps that were never actually there. But here's the strange part. None of this feels like imagination in the moment. It feels like clarity, like you're finally seeing what's really happening. And that's what makes it so difficult to question. Because when perception starts feeling like truth, even distortion feels justified. This is where relationships begin to lose their simplicity. Not because people are changing, but because interpretation is changing. You're no longer reacting to what is happening, you're reacting to what it might mean. And the more uncertain you feel, the more meaning your mind creates to fill the silence. But meaning created under emotional tension is rarely accurate. It is shaped by fear, anticipation, and the need to resolve discomfort quickly. And that is exactly why misunderstandings start to feel so real, because they are emotionally reinforced before they are verified. Over time, this creates a subtle shift. You stop experiencing people directly and start experiencing your interpretation of them. And once that shift happens, something very important is lost: the ability to see neutrality as neutral. Because everything begins to carry emotional weight it may not actually have. And this is where the cycle deepens again. The more meaning your mind creates, the more emotionally involved you become. And the more emotionally involved you become, the more meaning your mind is forced to create. Until eventually, you are no longer inside a relationship, you are inside a mental model of one. And that model feels real enough to control your reactions, your decisions, and your emotional state, even when nothing concrete is actually happening. Which leads to a question most people never think to ask. If your experience of someone is shaped more by interpretation than reality, then what exactly are you responding to? And once this reaches a certain point, something even stranger begins to happen. You stop trusting your own reactions, but not all at once. At first, it only happens in certain moments. You feel something, but immediately question it. You think something is true, but pause before fully believing it. And here's the contradiction most people never notice. The more you try to correct your perception, the the less confident you become in it. It's like your mind starts doubting itself in real time. So instead of reacting naturally, you begin watching yourself react. And that creates a split that slowly becomes normal. One part of you is experiencing life, the other part is constantly evaluating whether that experience is accurate. And this is where something subtle breaks, because even simple situations stop feeling simple. A delayed reply is no longer just a delay, but you also can't fully trust that it means anything. A short message feels like distance, but you also know you might be overthinking it. So now you're stuck in between two versions of reality, unable to fully commit to either. But here's where it becomes dangerous. Most people assume this makes them more rational, more careful, more self-aware. But in reality, it does the opposite. It makes them dependent on external confirmation just to stabilize their internal state. And that creates a strange reversal. You're no longer using your thoughts to understand reality. You're using reality to validate your thoughts. So even your instincts stop feeling like instincts. They start feeling like guesses that need approval. And the more this continues, the more subtle it becomes. Because you don't feel like you've lost trust in yourself. You feel like you're just being careful. But underneath that, something important is eroding. Your ability to stand inside a feeling without needing it confirmed. And that's the real shift most people never recognize. Not emotional dependence, but internal uncertainty disguised as awareness. And this is where the loop tightens again. Because the more you doubt your internal signals, the more you reach outward for certainty. And the more you reach outward, the less stable your internal signals become. Until eventually, even your strongest instincts don't feel like truth anymore. They feel like opinions waiting to be validated. And that raises a question most people avoid asking. If you can no longer fully trust what you feel in the moment, then how many of your decisions are actually coming from you, and how many are just attempts to feel certain again?